name's Mrs Brookbanks and I'm the head of the science department. In our school you will have 5 science lessons a week. Typically you have 2 or 3 science teachers, and with those you will learn a variety of biology subjects and chemistry subjects and physics subjects. What we've got here are some examples of what you may use in your science lessons with us, starting off with some microscopes. So we use these in Year 7 when we're learning about cells and all about what we are made up of. Looking through this one, we've got a feather down the bottom. We can have a look through the eyepiece. And so from that, by looking through our microscope, we can see some of the finer features of feathers. We can also look at cells out of plants, and also looking at some pre-prepared slides from cells from our own bodies that we are able to see by using some dye and pick out some of the features and learn all about what it is that makes us and that builds us up into our tissues and into our organs and then into us as full human beings. Other examples of things that you will learn whilst you're with us for physics are about electricity. So we have a look at circuits, we have equipment for building circuits, for example this one, so simply by pushing the switch then we've got in this one a fan, but we have motors, we've got light bulbs, and learning all about how electricity works, why it is sometimes bulbs are brighter than others, and how to build circuits in different formats, and when you would use each format. Another topic that we have a look at is waves, and so one section of that is light waves. So doing experiments with ray boxes, so have a look at what happens when we shine light through different objects when they're different shapes, why sometimes it sends them off in different directions, and then what happens if we shine white light into such things like prisms, and looking at why it is that we get rainbows and linking that into our everyday lives. Another topic that we look at across the course of Year 7 and Year 8 is energy, so having a look at the different types of energy that you can get and how they display in real life. So I've just used energy in order to push that down, give it some time, and it will expel the energy. It'll transfer that energy into another form. So looking into the idea that we can't create or destroy energy, that it just gets transferred from one place to another, looking at all these different types of energy that we can come across and the sorts of objects we have in our everyday lives that are taking that energy and turning them into something else. We also look at forces, so the different types of forces that we can experience. We look at investigating forces, for example using things like Newton meters and looking at what affects the amount of force needed to do certain different jobs. And in chemistry, some of the topics that we look at are to do with particles, what makes something a solid, what makes it a liquid, what makes it a gas, the sorts of things that can cause things to change from liquids to gases, gases to liquids, and so on. One experiment that we do is with homemade thermometers, so by looking at, well, what happens if we put them in different circumstances. So in this we've just got it in some hot water and then watching very carefully to the level of the liquid. And we can see it's slowly starting to rise up that tube, just like you'd expect to see in a thermometer that you had at home. If it was hotter, then that line would travel upwards, and then similarly if we take it out and make it colder, then it'll go downwards. So little experiments that help us to understand what the things that we can't see do in terms of affecting our environment. Another area that we look at are acids and bases. So looking at different types of chemicals and solutions, and how 3 liquids that we've got here, all colourless solutions, look exactly the same, and yet actually by using chemical tests we can see that they're not. So adding a liquid called universal indicates that one, and we see that it goes a really dark greeny colour. And then take another chemical that looks exactly the same on appearance, but by adding a chemical test we can see that actually no, that's a completely different chemical, and that one's gone more of a pinky red colour. And then again taking a third completely colourless liquid, adding a bit of universal indicator, and that one's gone more of a grass green. And so using chemical tests to learn about different types of chemicals, how they behave differently, and how we use them differently in our everyday lives. And finally, finishing with a demonstration that we use in our space unit, where we have a think about what would happen if a spaceman was to remove his helmet in space. experiments that you could expect to be doing in science at West Lakes Academy. If you want any further information about science, have a look in the prospectus, and there's a little bit more information in there about all the different topics that we learn in Year 7 and in Year 8.